Welcome back to wagertalk.com. We're heading to the ACC, and we've got a big one. Georgia Tech at Miami of Florida. Who would have thought this would have been the two unbeatens in the ACC battling right now? But Georgia Tech's played well. Soft schedule so far. Got Miami of Florida coming off the big game against Florida State. Come from behind victory at the end. This is going to be Preston's best bet. So I'm going to go to you first, Brian. Tough scheduling spot for Miami. This game originally was scheduled to be played on Thursday, but because they had to use Miami's bye week last week to make up for the Hurricane game that was canceled against Florida State earlier, they moved this to Saturday, which, you kind of have to do. I mean, it's not fair for them to come off that game and have to play back on Thursday, especially facing this Georgia Tech offense, which runs the option, which is tough to prepare for.
It is tough to prepare for, but they see it every year, and they've actually performed pretty well. Last 2 years, they only allowed 21 points to Georgia Tech, and if you've watched Georgia Tech, they can put points up in a hurry, especially if you're not prepared for it. So having that extra time is definitely going to help them here. But to be honest with you, how long do you think it took them to come down off of that Florida State win? That is a concern for me here. They've won 7 out of the last 8 in this series. They may just take Georgia Tech a little bit for granted here. That is my concern.
Obviously, the letdown is in play coming off the Florida State game. But the fact that they're playing another undefeated team, you shouldn't take them for granted. My question is, though, this is going to be the third week in a row that they're playing a big-time game, Preston. They played 2 weeks ago, the Friday night game, again, Thursday or Friday night game, I'm not sure which one it was, but the Duke game. And that was a big game because at the time Duke was, the darling and undefeated at the time. Granted, we thought Duke would come back some, but there was a lot of people that gave Duke a big shot in that game, and Miami went in there and spanked them. Then they have to play the Florida State game and then come right back and face this Georgia Tech team. Is again, quirky offense. Yes, you see it every year, but if you're not 100% mentally prepared, if you're still, celebrating last week's last-second win, all of a sudden you can find yourself down 14-0, a couple breakaways, because Georgia Tech's offense has been clicking. The problem is it's been all running, but does Georgia Tech have a couple surprises in store for Miami with the extra week off?
Yeah, they certainly could, and I think that's why you're seeing the numbers so low, because of the situational spot with Miami off the Florida State win and Georgia Tech obviously coming off of a bye themselves and having an option attack, which can be tough to prepare for. My raw number is 9, so I really like Miami. The number's too low, and I don't think you can make an adjustment that's worthy of 4 points because of the spot, let alone ones that are through a key number like 7 and even 6 some. So I like Miami. I'm going to lay the points at 5 or 5.5, which are the two widely available numbers right now. And when ultimately comes down to it, Miami's the much better team. They have the much better defense. You look at Georgia Tech, whose defense has been pretty good and offense has looked really good. And, UNC and Pitt are so bad this year that those 2 wins don't really look fantastic. The other Georgia Tech win, I think, was James Madison was their FCS opponent, and they actually aren't undefeated.
Jacksonville State.
Was it Jacksonville State? Okay, thanks. They lost to Tennessee to open the year, and Tennessee's atrocious. And I know Georgia Tech outplayed them and ended up losing late. It might have gone even to overtime.
That was the one with the big lead, and they
lost
blew
it.
Yeah.
They still lost the game to Tennessee, who can't score. And they gave up 42 or something like that. And the quarterback's already been demoted, and now the other quarterback for Tennessee is starting. So I'm not sure what Georgia Tech's really done yet. And Miami has done things against better teams, even though it might be 3 weeks in a row that they need to prove it. Also, by the way, Mark Richt, great against the option last year, but he saw it every year. Granted, he was the offensive coordinator over at Georgia, or calling the offense. He's more the offensive-minded guy. But he saw it. Georgia Tech and Georgia play each other every year. He's seen the Georgia Tech offense and the option plenty. So I don't think that's really an edge that Georgia Tech ultimately has, and the number's so low. And Rozier's going to bounce back. I think they really shut out in the first half against Florida State. I think they have a lot. I don't think they're going to be happy that they got that win. I think they have a lot because they have a higher thing set in mind, whether it's national title or ACC title. And they're going to go back and say, hey, we made a lot of mistakes and we were lucky to win that game. Let's go back to the film, figure out why our offense couldn't move the ball for 3.5 quarters or 2.5 quarters. I think they're going to be a much better team, and against a Georgia Tech team that just hasn't seen this talent yet at all on both sides of the ball.
I can't disagree with you. Miami, if they get through this game against Georgia Tech, they've got clear sailing until they have the game against Notre Dame. That'll be their toughest game. If they get Notre Dame at home, they're on a collision course to be meeting Clemson in the ACC, championship game. They're playing well. Mark Richt, second life in Miami after, leaving Georgia, and, his time was, he wore out his welcome there at Georgia. They couldn't get over the hump, but he's got Miami heading in the right direction. And like I said, if this wasn't off of the Florida State game, I would be even higher. That's my only thing, is coming off the Florida State game. But Georgia Tech hasn't played anybody, so I can't disagree with you there. Good stuff, guys. Hey, 3-day all access at Wager Talk. You want to just jump on board for the weekend? Well, this is a great way to do it. Pick the day you want to start. You get 3 consecutive days. It's just $59. It's an all-access package, so you pick the capper you want. You get all of their plays: college, NFL, baseball, any hockey plays. Basketball will be starting soon. You get it all in an all-access 3-day package, just $59 at wagertalk.com. We're going to be back with more here at Wager Talk.